Jane, welcome back to the program here. Kamala Harris had a tremendous start to her campaign, but at some point, the honeymoon is going to end. Will she be ready for the Republican onslaught that you know is probably coming?
You know, you're absolutely right. I mean, she has really had a great start, one that no one could have really prepared for. I mean, we've all been surprised, frankly. You know, historical numbers when it comes down to fundraising, historical support in terms of delegates lining up, all of those things have really happened. And so now, as we move forward, and the question is she ready, right? That's the question on people's mind. Well, I think that she's showing in real time that she is ready. The question had been, does she have the organization? What are they going to do about messaging? So far, Kamala Harris has been spot on.
And let's leave VP out of it for a moment here. What are the next immediate steps you think that she and her campaign must take? Because the clock is ticking. We're less than 100 days out.
The clock is ticking. I think one of the things that she is really pleased about, and the Democratic Party is pleased about, is that the thought going into this was that the scramble, the delegate scramble, would be much more complex. So she really
there might be competition in the race.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That they would be competition, that, you know, perhaps she wouldn't get the delegates that she needed. So she's really shortened that timeline tremendously. And because we don't see that delegate fight happening, she has more time to really now turn the page just a little bit. She has to stay focused on that, on the mechanics of that. But that's what the DNC for, that's what the allies are for. You know, Biden is also helping out with that. So now what we're really looking at is her organization. What we're hearing, that is in large part, she's really adopting the Biden campaign, right? So that first speech that she gave at the mic, you may remember, you know, early on in the week, when Biden was on the phone, still on the phone and sort of listening in, they were at campaign headquarters. And so, you know, in terms of DNC. So those staff that have been working with Biden, they are in place. And so right now, I mean, in terms of organization, you're really looking at who's going to be her top person, right? Who's going to be over messaging. It's my understanding that she may be inheriting one person from Biden's team on that, and we'll see if that person remains in place right now. But on messaging so far, she's hitting the right notes, and so I'd say keep it going.
There are going to be hurdles, though, ahead. What do you think some of those hurdles are for her campaign?
I think, you know, what we're really looking at and what people are really listening for is what is the message going to be threaded throughout the campaign? Does it stick? Because that's what people are really listening for, right? Who are you? What is it that you represent? Are you aligned with me? Are you aligned with my values as a voter? Why should I go out and vote for you? And what we're seeing is that Kamala Harris is really focusing in on the idea of America, right? Versus these very specific, you know, more policy-oriented conversation. She's really saying this campaign is about the past and the future. Who are we as Americans, and what is it that we want our country to be defined for? And I really do think that that is what this campaign is about, and that's what this election is going to be about.
Will that stick?
I do think so, because if you think about it, in 2024, now more than ever, we are seeing a lot of rights being rolled back, right? I mean, first and foremost is, as a woman, can you truly say that you are free in America if you don't have autonomy and agency over your own body? And that is a question for the ballot box. And I do believe that while there are some women that, you know, may say one thing around certain people, I think when they get in that ballot box and they have to press that lever, they're going to vote for themselves and their freedom.
Kamala Harris has made news several times since she's been in the White House, and even before that for staff turnover. She never has really had a Karl Rove, a David Axelrod, a James Carville that previous candidates and presidents have had. Is she looking for that person now? And how hard is it to move forward without that person?
Well, you know, she did have a long-term staffer that joined her from California to the Hill when she got to the Senate. You know, that is no more, so you're right about that. And I do think in large part, people are really interviewing in real time to be that right hand. I mean, she's got some people who are on the Hill who have definitely served as a kitchen cabinet that she's known for years. And so we will start hearing names. But look, people are interviewing for that job, make no mistake about it.
President Biden named Vice President Harris the border czar back in 2021 when they took office. How can Harris defend the border surge? Because that seems just like it's going to be red meat for Republicans.
Absolutely. Well, the beautiful thing about that right now is numbers are going down. As we know, we got the latest report that border crossings are going down. But in terms of that issue, the way I sort of think about it is that the fact that she accepted that sort of position to be the person out there to talk about the border. I don't know that she was really technically the border czar. I know that that's like the title that Republicans like to place on her, but you're right.
Yeah.
She was given the task of immigration, and you know what she did? She was able, in terms of policy, to get a bipartisan bill on both the House side and the Senate side. But Donald Trump made sure that he made phone calls to kill that bill. And he made phone calls, and what he said in those conversations was that I do not want to give President Biden a win on this issue for his next election. So he killed the bill.
Do you expect that to be a central defense message from her? And do you expect this to really get into the policy specifics? Because Donald Trump doesn't really get into specifics a lot for policies.
Not only will that be a part of her answer on the border issues, but that is just the truth. That's actually a fact. Those things really happened on the Hill, right? In terms of policy and how substantive, we'll see what this conversation is. We all know that Donald Trump, he loves to tell stories. He's not someone that does well with facts. He does a lot of miscommunication, misinformation, and frankly, as I would see them, if you're looking at the fact and the truth, I have to call it lies. So I don't imagine that we're going to see a lot of policy-oriented conversation. I really do think that the campaign is truly going to be about what you see and what you want and how we want to define America. Do we want America of the past, or are we continuing to move and want to continue to go forward and talk about the America in our future and what our ideas and values are and how we align around those things?
The next big thing for the campaign, obviously the vice presidential choice. What's happening right now inside the campaign? Because it's got to be frantic trying to figure out who this person is.
The first rule of thumb when you're choosing a vice presidential candidate is do no harm. Do no harm.
And explain that to our viewers, what that means.
That means that you've got to take your time to vet, right? You may have someone that you like. You may have someone that, in terms of public opinion, this is a charismatic person, a likable person. They do well on a campaign stump. But you really have to take the time to vet them. What is in their background? Are there any skeletons? Is there any issue that's going to pop up from their past? And so you really have to take the time to vet. And I would say that if we hear something later rather than sooner, that might be the holdup. But we are expecting to hear an announcement soon. It could be as soon as the weekend, or it could be any time before August 7th, when those ballots have to be done by.
The national convention is 3 weeks in Chicago from now. What are you going to be watching for in the next week or so?
I'm going to be watching for who falls off that VP list for sure. I'm also going to be watching her campaign take shape. As we know, the Donald Trump organization and J.D. Vance, they are stumbling. They don't know what to say. They are all over the place with messaging, and they're really frantic on the other side. They're really having a meltdown because this was not expected. And I don't think the excitement was expected either. And so I'm sort of watching how it is that Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are reacting to this. And I do think that they're making some really critical mistakes. It's a mistake to make this election about race. That's going to make swing voters uncomfortable, because when we really think about
Race and gender.
Race and gender, absolutely. And when we think about it, you know, we know that Donald Trump is going to hold on to his, you know, MAGA voters, those hard right conservative voters. And we know that Kamala Harris will hold on to her base, right? So what we're talking about is sort of middle America, battleground states, swing voters. And I just don't believe that in 2024, Americans want to be defined around, you know, race and gender in a negative way. So I think we're going to start seeing pushback on this kind of rhetoric.
Are you surprised at the unity and momentum that has surrounded Kamala Harris? There were a lot of questions ahead of time, but Democrats have done a 180 in this campaign.
That's right. You know, I think what we're seeing is something very different that I personally don't think that I have seen, you know, as I've been an observer in this space and sort of an insider in some ways, that there were a lot of questions, I would say, internally in the Democratic Party about how, you know, Kamala Harris would fare.
Sure.
But we saw the excitement from the outside. So when you look at, you know, $81 million in the first 24 hours, that is unprecedented in a presidential race. And when we see that 62%, right, were new donors, what that's telling us is that these are people and messaging and excitement coming from without, right, in terms of it's coming from
the outside.
Outside. Yeah. Versus the inside of the Democratic Party out. So these are new voters, new donors who are excited about Kamala Harris, and that gave us momentum.
Well, are they excited about Harris, or are they excited that Biden's out of the race? Which one?
It could be a mixture of both, but you know, I will say this. When you give your money, typically you're excited about the person you're giving your money to.
Jane, thanks so much for the time and the insight. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jason.